Welcome to the ASU Sports Business Podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Africa Sports Unified Sports Business Podcast. We hope you're well. And in this episode, Ridley had a great conversation with Nicolas Pompigne-Mognard. He is the chairman and founder of the APO Group, a wonderful man who has run the organization and 100% owns it since its inception in 2007. And now they have clients and providing services for a lot of established and blue chip clients, not just in sports, but in various different sectors. And so this episode, we really touched on the growth, leadership skills, and just his story to inspire good leadership and good governance as well. I'm sure we can all take some lessons learned from what he's saying. As usual, before we get into the podcast, if you haven't already done so, please do subscribe to our podcast on Apple and Spotify. And also to our newsletter. So we produce a dedicated monthly newsletter that goes direct to your inbox over the latest insights in the Pan-African sports space. But I am sure you will enjoy this conversation with Nicolas. He's extremely busy, so we do appreciate his time and the nuggets that he managed to share with us, to be honest with you. So thank you so much. And we hope that you enjoy the conversation. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another ASU podcast. Hope you're well. I'm so glad to have with me today a true visionary, a true pioneer, not just the African sports space, but just the African landscape as a whole. I'm so glad to have Nicolas Pompigne-Mognard, excuse my French tongue, everyone, with us today. But Nick, thank you, I'm trying.
Close enough. That's fine.
I'm trying to be multilingual like you. But no, Nicolas is dual nationality, French, Gabonese. And I'm sure, as you all know, he's the founder and chairman of the APO Group. And of course, we'll delve into that in a bit more detail. But they are, I would say, the leading Pan-African Communications Consultancy and press release distribution service firm across the continent, and they have, of course, global presence, which he started in 2007. But just to name some, or regurgitate some of the accolades of Nicolas specifically. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, you are an advisory board member for the African Energy Chamber, senior advisory board member of the Canada Africa Chamber of Business. You're a member of the task force for FIFA CAF Infrastructure Development Project, advisory board member for the Africa Hotel Investment Forum, and there's just so much more. Another founding member of Bloomberg New York. I can sit here and regurgitate some of your accolades and what you've done, but I think that's just testament to who you are and the journey that you've been on, and I guess what you are doing for the whole space. So, enough from me, but Nicolas, thank you for joining. How are you?
I'm okay. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the very kind words of introduction.
No, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I know you have a very, very busy schedule, and just to reiterate, so this series that we're doing and this purpose is to really delve into and just hear more from some of the leaders in that whole Pan-African sports space. So not just sports, but just Pan-African space in general. One of the key things that we have identified is that in order to develop industries, drive innovation, etc., you really need those leaders who are quite innovative and to be the spearhead of organizations and drive change and whatnot. And of course, you epitomize that so much. But I guess to start off with, my first question to you is, well, just tell us about your journey that led you to establish APO and what inspired you with this venture. I also want to ask you that as well, because recently on LinkedIn, you posted such an inspiring post about when you started APO, how many years ago, with your wife, your 3 kids, etc. So you took that leap of faith. But yeah, just a bit more detail how you embarked upon that journey.
Well, I was a journalist based in Europe. I was working for a media called Gabon News, which is a Gabonese media, Central Africa, and I was a correspondent for Europe based in Paris. And at the time, we're talking 2006, 7, 8. As you know, the narrative about the continent was extremely negative. The international media coverage was all about poverty and misery and AIDS and
yes.
etc. But I knew, as a correspondent of an African media, I knew that there were already some good news coming from the continent. The African Development Bank was already issuing statements about a burgeoning middle class, and here and there were some interesting news and news which were in fact giving hope at the time, where that very infamous front page from The Economist, which was Africa's hopeless continent. So I find that very unfair and inaccurate in a way. It was inaccurate, and so I realized that maybe one way to mitigate that, to counter that, to rebalance the narrative, was to make sure the international media community had access to all those press releases, statements, official statements issued by our institutions, the African institutions. And so I did a little test, let's say, as a correspondent of an African media in Europe. One of my tasks was to receive as many press releases as possible. When the European Commission was issuing a statement about Africa, I needed to receive that statement. When the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs were making a statement about Africa, I needed to receive that. So part of my time was dedicated to contact, first of all, list all the institutions and wherever they are, including the United Nations institution headquartered in Europe, for instance, WHO in Geneva or FAO in Rome, etc., and subscribe to their press release in one way or in one form or the other. So some organization, you will have to call them to ask them to add your email into their media list. Some other, you will have to just go on their website, subscribe to the RSS feed, or subscribe to the mailing list. But at the time, I find it quite challenging. In fact, listing the organization was okay, but then for some organization in Europe, it would take you 1 month to be able to talk to the right person and make sure your email is added to the right email distribution list, etc., etc. So I did the test. I said, well, maybe one of the reasons why the narrative about Africa conveyed by the international media is so poor is because, well, those guys are not receiving those statements. Because me, I'm receiving the statement from the African Development Bank and the West African Development Bank and the African Union Commission and the Pan-African Parliament, etc. But maybe the international media, they don't receive that because maybe it's difficult for them to receive. So I did that thing. I went to our internal institution and I tried to put myself in the shoes of a Spanish journalist, French journalist, UK journalist, looking for international official statement issued by African institutions. In fact, indeed, it was extremely complicated. The website was not clear. It would take months for you to and countless phone calls to make sure you receive the content and the press release, etc. So what I decided to do is to indeed put a lot of time contacting one after the other as many African institutions and organizations as I could, and to make sure I would be receiving their press releases, and then I put that in the same format. So the NewsML format, which is the international standard of news exchange in the world, added metadata, etc. And then when I had a consistent feed of news releases related to Africa, well, I went to the like of Bloomberg, Thomson Reuters, LexisNexis, Factiva, and a lot of others, news aggregators and professional platforms. And I told them, listen, I have a feed here of African-related news. Those are official statements from on all sorts of topic, economy, business, whatever, issued by African institutions. it's free. I'm giving that away for free. I'm giving access for free. Please make that available to the international media community. And so we hook up partnership with Bloomberg Terminal, Thomson Reuters Terminal, so Thomson Reuters Econ, LexisNexis, Deutschland Factiva. And so slowly, we through those very high-profile company, we were able to make all those African voices, if you wish, available, African narrative, African authoritative sources available to the international media community. So that's how it all started. And so from 2007 until 2012, APO was only doing press release distribution. And in 2012, we started to have some clients. So we went commercial quite fast. I mean, some companies came to us to say, well, can we also distribute press release, etc. So we established ourselves as a business. And along the way, 2012, 2013, some of our clients started to say, well, okay, we really like the way you're distributing our press release. Could you also organize a press conference? Could you also organize an interview? Could you publish an opinion piece for us, etc. And so from 2012 to 2018, we would provide press release distribution, but also public relation services, media relations services, but only on an ad hoc basis. So until 2018, APO is only a press release distribution service company, distributing text, image, video, and sound bites to the media. But we're also providing on an ad hoc basis, on demand, only to our clients, a few media relations services. So as I said, organizing interviews, organizing press conferences. And it's only in 2018 that we are establishing a second business unit. And we became the leading Pan-African Communications Consultancy and press release distribution service. So two business units, press release distribution, public relation. And within 4 years, we became the largest, most prominent public relation agency on a Pan-African scale. So the specificity of the company, APO Group, is that we have two business units, press release distribution, public relation, and the second specificity is that we are Pan-African in everything we do. Either we can distribute press release on a Pan-African scale, or we can manage your public relation on a Pan-African scale. And so the company grew 40%. The revenue grew 40% in 2021, 60% in 2022. We are now managing the public relations for each 54 countries of the continent for the like of FIFA, Canon, Foundation. We are working with Western Union, with Nestle. We have 320 clients, and we've just received 5 Sabre Award, which is the largest, the most prominent public relation award globally, and 5 is the highest number received by any company this year. So so we are indeed very successful. And the post you were referring to on LinkedIn, indeed, was quite. I wasn't expecting that. It was quite successful. I've been liked close to 300 times, or if maybe more. And so in that post, I was explaining the fact that you see today we are distributing. So in the post, I'm stating that during the last 24 hours, we APO distributed press releases for Canon, African Development Bank. Whatever, all the big brands, etc. So many brands, Afrexim Bank, Marriott, Radisson. So I was highlighting the fact that within the last 24 hours, we APO distributed press release for some of the biggest brands in the world and some of the biggest institutions on the African continent. And so I was explaining how it took me back to 16 years ago. When I was in the office of PR Newswire, which was at the time the largest press release distribution service, I was visiting the office in London, their European office, and I was telling them at the time, and it was the same period of time was when I was started that narrative about Africa as the hopeless continent, etc. But I went to see them and I said, listen, Africa doesn't have a press release distribution industry. There is no actors. No one is doing that, but there is potential. At some point, someone will become the king of press release distribution in Africa. There is potential, and I was trying to. I was discussing. I was in a room full of, full of senior executives, etc. And I was trying to convince them that you should invest. You are a global leader. They were. You should definitely not disregard Africa because it's going to be a growing market. It's going to be a market in 5 years, 10 years. It's going to be a press distribution. And what I'm explaining in my LinkedIn post is that they basically laughed at me and I said that Africa, you must be kidding. And Africa will never never be a market for press release distribution. I mean, never work, etc., etc. And so at the time, I had no money. I was married. I have 3 kids. If they have offered me €1,000 to do the job for them and to open the African market for them, I would have done it. But instead of that, what I had was I don't know if you say that in English, but it was a very unpleasant.
Just rejections, yeah.
Very pleasant discussion. So I came back to my little home. I came back to my family. That's what I explained in my LinkedIn post. I worked very hard, in fact. But now, 16 years after, so it's a long time, but 16 years after a lot of time and effort, APO reigns supreme when it's come to press distribution in Africa. I mean, there is not one company which can remotely compare to APO when it's come to press release distribution on the African continent. Not in Africa, no any global press distribution service can be about comparing to what we are doing. So the market is ours, and I own 100% of that company.
Yeah,
which also happened now to do public relation and being very successful at it.
No, that's great. I wonder how, from what you've stated and your experiences, do you believe that those sort of rejections or setbacks has really propelled you? Or was it like, maybe this wasn't your initial plan, but it just propelled you to be like, okay, they're not listening, let me do it myself? And just actually how difficult was it to maybe navigate that early stages and understanding? Of course, you have a good knowledge with your background, but actually navigating the space, how was that?
Well, to be honest, I didn't know nothing about the press release distribution industry.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of people think that because I was a journalist, I need all, but I wasn't an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I wasn't in the public relation or press distribution industry. I was a journalist. Like, and those two title position industry are completely different. I mean, believe me, it's not because you are a journalist that you can become an entrepreneur, and that you can become, and not because a journalist, you can become an entrepreneur in the press release business. So I wasn't really prepared to that, and I didn't do a business school or whatever. So I mean, I had to learn it all
on the job
by myself, just doing it. I started on my own. I started on my own in my living room, and that's why today I still own 100% of my company, because I never had any investors. I never had any bank loan or etc. I was saying that APO grew 40%. The revenue grew 40% in 2011, 60% 2002. But I should add, as I said, that I own 100% of the company, and that company has no debt.
Yeah.
So I did it the hard way, if you wish, compared to some entrepreneurs which claim they did it all on their own, but actually started with a 10 million loan or whatever.
Support, yeah.
So I had to learn everything while doing it. Now, yes, I think definitely there is a story of resilience and the idea or the will to fight something which isn't fair, and starting by the image that the African continent had. so many 99% of any discussion, any serious discussion about Africa should start with a statement. Africa is not a country.
Mm-hmm.
Africa is not a country. Africa is 54 countries, and I'm always amazed that Western countries, for instance, European countries, they are from France, from Germany, from Portugal, from Italy. They are talking about Africa, but Europe is 8 countries, and it's a mess. And it's a mess.
Mm-hmm.
We have 54 countries. So Africa is not a country, and so along the 15 years I've been around, some countries, some individual countries has up and downs. Some country will develop, some other will be facing conflict, etc. But overall, you cannot be African. You cannot look at Africa during the last 15 years and being hopeless, thinking that there is no potential nowhere across that continent. So I think the idea is that once and for all, it's a given that Africa, so all those 54 countries and that entire population is hopeless. And so there is nothing to do there. There is no investment to be made. There is, and by the way, let's continue to convey that message across the world, because we have the power of the international media that there is nothing to be done there, and those people in that continent are hopeless. Yeah, when you hear that too much, too often, from two different media or channel, etc. Well, you may want to fight this at some point because it's unfair, because it's inaccurate, and so and I know that on that LinkedIn post there is one thing which made a few people react, and I'm not born with the internet, and so I find those hashtags very funny, and and so I'm making my own hashtags, I don't care. I understand the purpose of a hashtag, and me, I'm making my own hashtag. And so I put on the LinkedIn post, I put the hashtag, prove them wrong or die trying.
Yeah.
It was very much about that. It was about prove them wrong. If I was a little bit more straightforward or even a little bit rude, I would say that 16 years ago, I was in that room. I was nothing. I had no money, and I was surrounded by 10 vice presidents, senior vice president, whatever. Which were like very, full of themselves and so sure that Africa would never be a market for press distribution. Well, today I'm making more money than all of them combined.
Wow.
So
that would have been a big statement.
I guess maybe they were wrong. Now it took a lot of work. I didn't do that in 6 months and working part time. I did that in 15 years, working a lot. But I think if they are listening, if they remember, I proved them wrong, right? Yeah.
Indeed. No, I love that. It's just a great insight in terms of some of the early challenges you faced doing this, and honestly, like, hats off to you. But I guess from the landscape probably has changed from when you started 16 years ago to it now, especially in the quote unquote media space that APO operates in. So how has, your strategies maybe adjusted to acclimatize to the shift in how media and technology is being used, especially, people's perceptions, but, there's a lot of technological advancements in Africa, especially with mobile money and things like that. And as you mentioned at the beginning, in terms of the growing demographic of people with disposable income. So how has APO had to shift in that time of those digital media advancements?
Well, for APO, so first of all, there have been indeed a lot of evolutions in the African media landscape, right? But to me, the way I see it, the main evolution is not about technology or etc. So if you look globally, there have been a huge evolution, of course, and so the entire media landscape, the global media landscape, is still searching, I think, for new way to monetize. So there is three of the main challenges that the international media landscape are facing is monetization, talents, and digitalization. But if we go back to Africa, those are the same challenges, right? Africa is part of the world, right? So same monetization, digitalization, talents, and talent retention. Okay, fine. But Africa, in my view, is facing way more bigger phenomenon, which is also a way more bigger problem, which is also in line with the discussion we just had. So you see, what happened is that 15 years ago, all these multinational companies would say, well, Africa, China, maybe Africa, there is nothing to do there, etc., etc. Yeah. But then, starting 10 years ago or so, more and more multinational companies started to invest on the continent. And typically they will open an office in South Africa, and they will make business in South Africa. But then, within the next 10 years and now, they all decided that, we want to now Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya. They want to expand, let's say, from their headquarters in South Africa. They want African headquarters. They want to expand into the continent. And so we had that phenomenon where we saw so many multinational companies, and we know Pepsi Cola invested $1 billion something 2 or 3 years ago to compete with Coca-Cola, obviously, and so many companies are investing on the African continent. Now, on the other side, when it comes to the media, now I come back to what is, according to me, the main challenge the African media landscape is facing. What we have witnessed during the last, I would say, 7 years, let's say, is the expansion of the international media, the so-called international media, onto Africa, right? So you have more and more international media expanding into Africa or entering on the African market, and so competing with the local media, with the African national media. So we all know about the CNBC Africa and maybe Africa News, but there is way more. In France, you had newspaper Le Monde, which created Le Monde d'Afrique. You have Le Point, which created Le Point Afrique. You have La Tribune, which created La Tribune Afrique. You have Huffington Post, which created the Huffington Post Maghreb, Morocco, Tunisia, whatever. You had the CGTN, all the Chinese media, which expand like crazy on the African continent with different languages. You have Al Jazeera, which opened big offices on the continent, and the last country actually expanded on the continent, I think was like less than a month ago, is TRT, which is Turkish, which just launched TRT Africa. TRT Africa has been launched, I think, a month ago or so. So Africa is becoming a playground for so many countries, because let's not forget that we are referring to them as international media, but they are not. They are national media with international geographical coverage. Their coverage is international, but they are national media. Al Jazeera is very much Qatar, BBC UK, France 24 is very much France, and TRT Africa is very much Turkish, and CGTN is very much Chinese, right? So you have so many countries which are investing through which their national media are investing into the African continent, and so they are competing. And I'm not even mentioning the CNN, the BBC, etc. At some point, I think 4 years ago, I was at the BBC headquarters in London, and the Africa editor was telling me that there is one country which that country will not represented because maybe the figures are involved, but 4 years ago that will still be true, that's still the case. That country was representing 25% of the overall global audience of BBC,
Wow.
and that country was Nigeria.
Wow.
So when you start looking at that, it is a little bit crazy. It's a little bit concerning to see that so many countries. Again, UK, France, traditional colonizer.
Yeah.
Now, Germany with the Welle, Al Jazeera with Qatar with Al Jazeera, Turkish with TRT Africa, China with CGTN and Xinhua, and I'm probably forgetting others. Well, it's become a concern now because for different reasons. But one of the reasons is that they are kind of telling the African story to the world. So now they are the one telling the world about Africa. Yeah. Because if you are in Paris, if you are in Washington, if you're in New York, if you are in Moscow and Beijing, well, Africa doesn't have that international media, so you have to rely on those national media, which with international geographic coverage, to tell you what is happening in Africa. I mean, and strangely enough, and it's very disappointing. But if I'm Nigerian, I'm in Nigeria, I want to know what is happening in Kenya. Maybe I will learn about it from Al Jazeera or from CNN. In fact, right? It's true. So those are other people telling our story, which is never good in terms of sovereignty and owning our own narrative. Yeah. But then there is another aspect which is more like financial. I mentioned earlier that African media, just like the other media, are facing the same challenge, and that's digitalization, monetization, and all of this require investment. All of this require money. People tend to forget that media are companies. They are businesses. So they need to invest. They need to retain the talent. They need to and so well, if you are now I don't know, a Nigerian TV station or Kenyan TV station, and your competitors are BBC, CNN, and Al Jazeera, you just cannot fight that. Yeah. Competitors for advertising, competitors for talents also. So the situation is a little bit it's a huge preoccupation. Yeah. And there is for years now there is a discussion about giving Africa its own voice, giving Africa its own international media. But that's another story.
I think what you said, you touched on things that resonate not just in your own background, but across different sectors when it comes to Africa. In terms of financially, you're competing with, as you mentioned, national organizations with maybe international focus who have deeper pockets. And it becomes very difficult to compete. And the key thing that you said, and I'm going to actually touch on this because it's a quote that you used often. You've mentioned, well, the quote is, if we don't own our own story, we will lose our sovereignty. And so it goes back to the point that you mentioned about these international organizations telling the stories. If I'm in Nigeria, I can't see, or from a local broadcaster, information about what's going on in Kenya, for example. I mean, difficult question to ask you what's the solution, but I guess it's maybe in the day-to-day, like with organizations such as APO, to show, look, it can actually be done. But I guess competing in that international market just makes it difficult to, find that attention, because there's a lot of work going on the continent that's actually great work, but because maybe lack of finances or lack of that exposure, you can easily go to another, I don't know, CNN, BBC, etc.
Well, in public relation, which is our industry, one of the things we have to explain sometimes to our clients is that one of the very basic things we have to explain to our clients is that if they are not talking about their activity, talking about themselves, others will talk about them, and they may not like it. If you leave other people talking about you and being your image in the mind of your audience, your clients, etc., you may not like what's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's why you need to step in and you need to define a strategy and define your messaging and your narrative and make sure you own your own story, let's say.
Yeah.
So I guess when it's come to the African continent again, how do you get 54 countries or the institutions of those countries, so African Union Commission, African Development Bank, on realizing that or considering that it's important that that country actually has a voice, across the world and manage to get itself a voice to rebalance the narrative and just to have our own on the image, which is shaped about the continent across the world, globally, etc. So, I mean, I had that discussion for more than a decade with the like of African Development Bank and African Union Commission. Individually, the people I'm discussing with, they understand the idea, they understand the necessity. If you run a pool or a survey or whatever, you will find that everyone can understand that it is a necessity, and the sooner the better. When it's come to make it happen, for some reason it doesn't work. And by the way, I don't want to insult the past. There have been,
of course,
initiatives to try to do just that. I mean, Pan-Press, for instance, which was the Pan-African Press Agency, was very much, and it was an initiative supported or even initiated by the African Union Commission, was very much about that. But it failed, and Pan-Press today is, no offense to anyone, but Pan-Press today is nothing. It's like in their weight on the African media landscape, and more specifically their influence, their global influence to shape the narrative about the continent, etc. is like nothing, or close to nothing. So there have been people understanding that. There are still people understanding that, but then it seems that for some reason, no one seems to put things together to make it happen. It's not really a project.
No, that's interesting. So you mentioned as well that at the beginning, the clients that you have, and predominantly our background is sports. So just to mention them, you mentioned FIFA, NBA, recently Rugby Africa as well, Getty Images. Such an impressive client roster across so many different sectors. But I also want to ask in terms of that, your approach to building and maintaining these strategic partnerships, and maintaining that, and in terms of ensuring that your services are unique to each of them, because as I said, to the different sectors.
Well, first of all, we do have very prestigious clients in the sport industry.
Yeah.
Sport is a big chunk of our business, but in fact, most of our business is corporations. We have 320 clients, and the largest by far part of our turnover is coming from the world of corporation and businesses. So the like of Canon, DHL, Western Union, Nestle, etc., etc. So sport is maybe a little bit more visible, maybe it's a little bit more sexy and etc. But it's only one part of what. And so we are serving all sorts of industries, finance industry, sports, logistic, printing industries, all sort of industry. And it's not a challenge at all. We have staff which are specialized in some industries, and when we onboard a client which maybe is in an industry which we are not very familiar with, or something a little bit like a niche industry, we just build the capacity and to be able to serve that client. But it's not a problem at all for a company like to be able to serve a huge range of industry, because eventually the job is the same, the methodology are the same. We may have to train and or hire specific profiles if we are onboarding a client which is in a very unusual industry. But apart from that, publication is publication.
Yeah. A question that I want to ask you based on that, because I believe this is a great skill of yours, but lessons that maybe other people can learn in their organizations, what they're doing, but delegation. So, I mentioned you have hundreds of staff with a global footprint as well, right? So in terms of that actual delegation, from how do you manage that, but just how important is that in developing an organization such as APO, or an organization that's sustainable, and you're empowering your staff to do what they need to do?
Yeah, well, this is key. I mean, I was mentioning the fact that a couple of months ago we won 5 of the most prominent publication awards, and that's the highest number of awards won by a publication agency in Africa this year. In fact, in each categories we enter, we won the first prize, if you wish.
Wow.
So the question is, and I also mentioned the growth figures.
Yeah.
So the question I'm asked quite often is, well, why or how did you manage to be that successful? Let's say, and the answer is very clear. I don't have to search, I don't have to think or whatever. So it's a very clear and assumed situation and answer. Talents, people. We're not a company which is producing things. We don't have trucks, we don't have factories. Everything we do and the quality of everything we are doing is based on the talents which are working for the company. And so we have a strategy which is implemented for several years now, where we hire the best money can buy everywhere. So in any given country, if we need to hire one person, the mandate, which is very clear, very assumed, is that we want to know that we are hiring the best money can buy. And if we think we made a mistake, we just terminate that person until we find the right person. So if we are that successful, it's just because we just have the best people which are the best at what they do. But it's not enough. You also need to give them a purpose and an interesting professional life. So I think everyone at APO, all our colleagues know that we are not only about money and about business. We have, for so many reasons. So we have CSR, pro bono activities, which are supporting our values. We have an ethical chart, for instance, where we are banning some industries. So we are not working with tobacco, we're not working with alcohol, we're not working with weapon, and we are not working with gambling industries. So we have values in that company, and I think it's important. And the other thing is that because we are the only Pan-African communication consultancy, we have the most prestigious clients. So if you come to work with APO, you're gonna work with FIFA, you're gonna work with Jack Ma, you're gonna work with Canon, Nestle, with Western Union, with Rugby Africa, etc., etc. So huge brands, global brands. So we are providing crisis communication to Nestle. We are supporting the Catholic Church in Africa.
Yeah.
We are providing a media relation training to the communication manager of the rugby federations across the continent. I mean, we are doing so many things. Also, you have to consider our ecosystem. So as we speak this week, we're going to have, I don't know, 15 of our colleagues traveling to Portugal to attend the Afro Nation Festival, the Afrobeat, the largest Afrobeat festival.
Nice.
Yeah, because we are partner. We are the public relation agency. We're the public relation agency of Afro Nation. I mean, we are involved in so many different, areas, industries, and so our ecosystem is ranging from Afro Nation to the Catholic Church, to FIFA, to the NBA, to the Basketball Africa League, to Western Union, to the African NGO Week, etc. So I think when the job you're having is in a company which is Pan-African, which has values, which has a big logo, so the largest portfolio of very prestigious clients, which clearly is not there only to make money, which is actually giving back to the continent and to the community, and which is winning awards. Plus we are paying, normally well. I would say we are not paying very cheap salary. We are providing a good salaries, and so eventually the turnover is extremely low. Most of our colleagues are, when they are leaving because they are called to work with the government in their country. It was the case recently in Morocco, or with the United Nations. It was the case recently in Senegal, and we are not sad to see them leave. We have no problem with that. They become an extension of our ecosystem, still part of the family, and it's okay, So we have a very peaceful relationship with our staff.
That's one point. I love that, because even the next question I was going to ask was about culture, and I think you've answered that in terms of creating a vibrant culture where your staff are able to contribute, not just for financially, but purpose-filled. There's room for them to grow, etc., and things like that. So that's very, very, very important.
So the main point about that, I think, is it cannot be only about business. But I mean, here's the idea. If you're genuine about that, as the owner of the company, it's even better. And me, I'm perfectly genuine about that. I'm perfectly in accord. When the company started to make real money, when I actually started to make real money, it came very fast, the idea that, well, listen, cannot be only about amassing money, right? We need to find a way to do something good, right? To do something to what people refer to as give back or whatever. So quite soon we started, think about, okay, how can we help? Who can we support? etc. We did amazing things. During COVID, we distributed for free 15,000 press releases. Partnership with the World Health Organization. We are a member of the UNESCO Global Coalition for Education. I mean, people do not realize that, and because we are not necessarily communicating on it, but we are constantly, any given year, having pro bono initiatives. We are supporting some people because we think they are role models. In a couple of weeks, we're going to make an announcement. We are supporting a very prominent sport person on the African continent, and so that person is doing, is a role model for the African youth and we believe that what he is doing is great. It needs to be promoted. Well, we're gonna offer him a pro bono PR budget. So we will increase his
great.
As we speak right now, the company is involved in an 18 months media relation training program to train the communication managers of the Catholic Church in Africa and communication manager of Rugby Africa, for instance.
Yeah.
We are. I mean, some of those things are confidential, but there is a huge activity at APO which is pro bono, in fact.
I love that.
Based on way more than just business and have more money on my safe or having another big car or whatever.
Yeah. This question is, I guess it's obviously relevant to the individual in the sector, but from what you've been talking about in terms of where you are now, etc. At the beginning or early on, you said before real money started to come in those early days in terms of your entrepreneurial skills and navigating that. We spoke about delegation, but how crucial was it for you to, I guess, be flexible, because I'm assuming you're doing a lot of things at that time, but also trying to be, wise with your time in order that you're spending enough time on the things that you should do to help push forward, which was, an early APO, if that makes sense. Because I'm sure you had those maybe loads of things that you could be working on, but making sure you're prioritizing your time to work on the things that are important on the APO course.
As I said, I started alone. Literally in my living room with a computer. Yeah. Literally. So what you have to do when you start alone, and you have to multitask. Yeah. And so you are doing the sales, you're doing the IT, you're doing the accounting, you're doing the marketing, you're doing the delivery, you're doing all those things. So in any given day, you have to find the client, sign the contract, deliver the contract, so maybe organize the interview or place the opinion piece or whatever. You have to issue the invoice. You have to make sure you are getting paid. etc., right? And if you hire some staff, you have to hire them. You have to train them. You have to set up the email address. You do everything on your own, right? Yeah. And at the beginning, so I don't know, the first years, I would say 5 years or so, the people you're going to hire will also have to multitask. Yeah. Because that's what it is. You will need them to multitask. So one person will do sales and public relations, or will do IT and finance, or whatever. Yeah. But then, at some point, when the money will start to come, you're gonna have to. Something is going to happen. It's not going to happen in months. It's going to happen within 2-3 years, where the first part of your journey, you're going to need multitasking people. Yeah. Those people will take you somewhere, and then at some point, it will be important for you to understand that now you reach a point where you need to do the complete opposite. You need to specialize. You need to professionalize. You need to hire people which are better than you are at what they do. So you need multitaskers to get to a certain point. When you are at that point, the only way for you to grow is to hire professional experts at what they do. And so maybe so I can give you the example of sales, for instance, or commercial. Maybe at the beginning, for the first 3-4 years, you're going to have salesperson which are working on a model which is referred to as an island. Meaning they are doing everything. So they are identifying their prospects, turning them into leads, selling, contracting, but also farming them. Yeah. So maybe you're going to start with that because you don't have money to pay more people anyway. But then 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, then you're going to change the way you're selling and you're going to move to an assembly line where you have people specialized in lead generation, people specialized in qualifying the leads, people specialized in closing a contract, and people specialized in customer success and making sure those clients are happy and trying to sell more. Because each task, in fact, requires specific expertise. So if you don't have enough money to pay 5 people to create that assembly line, you need one guy which is able to generate money, period. That's it. But then if you want to grow, you need to hire professional people, experts, people, skilled people, and as far as you go, you will. As long as you go, you will. It's about specialization and professionalization.
Yeah, 100%. You also, I know you're quite, of course, passionate about entrepreneurship and innovation. You do a lot of talks on that subject as well. But with someone with your vast knowledge, right? What advice do you have for aspiring entrepreneurs who are looking to build their own organization and make a positive impact on in the Pan-African context?
Well, you mentioned it. I'm giving lectures. So each time I'm traveling on the African continent, each country I go, I always take 3-4 hours to go to a university, at the minimum one, and I'm giving a lecture on usually 2 topics. First, I'm giving a master class in media relations to communications students. But then I always also give a lecture on entrepreneurship. And the last time I did that was in Lusaka 3 weeks ago, and I'm going to do that in Kenya, in Nairobi, in a few weeks, and probably in Kampala also. So when it's come to entrepreneurship, I will not detail that here, but I have a list of 40 plus tips which I'm detailing. The first thing I would say, there are, again, the reason why there are 42 tips or so is because it is complex. It is complex. But among the things I can tell you based on what you just asked me, I think there are 2 preconceptions which we can address right now. The first thing is reaffirm that everyone can create a company. See young people which think entrepreneurs are very special people. They are blue blood or something like that. They are special kind, etc. That's true. Entrepreneurship is a real, maybe not the only one, but it's one of the real equalizer. Entrepreneurship, if you work hard, and maybe it's not enough, you also need a bit of luck, you also need to meet the right people, etc. But if you work hard, it doesn't matter which part of the country you are coming from, doesn't matter who are your parents, etc., etc. You can do it on your own. You can raise your own. Doesn't matter the diplomas you have, etc. So I think it's good to reaffirm that anyone can become an entrepreneur. Tomorrow you can decide that you want to become an entrepreneur. Now, creating a company, anyone can do. Anyone can go to an office, register a company, etc. Developing a company is a real challenge. So that's why you have so many people which, for instance, in the public relation industry, and no offense to anyone, but there are so many people which create a public relation agency or establish themselves as a public relation agency, and you come back to them 5 years, 10 years down the line, and there are 3 people, 4 or 5 staff. That's because creating a company is one thing, having 1 or 2 contracts and juggling with 1 or 2 contracts is one thing, but developing your company, making it 10 staff, 20 staff, 50 staff, 100 staff,
scaling up.
That's the real challenge. Now, another preconceived is that somehow people think that to create a company you need an idea. So you have that narrative that you want to create a company, well, what you need to find is an idea, and so somehow they some of them at least assume that well, maybe you take a pen and a paper and you just sit at your desk and you wait. You think hard until you find an idea, but that doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. What you need to find is not an idea. What you need to find is an opportunity, and you do not find an opportunity by being seated at your desk with a pen and a paper. You find an opportunity by getting to the world, meeting people, taking advantage of any trip you can make, any meeting any people you can meet, and that is where it's so important when you are a young person to not be picky if you are offered an internship, if you are offered to do a volunteering, etc., etc. Because if you are entrepreneur minded and you would like to create a company at some point, whatever this is really, it is by meeting people and looking around and mingling with people that you're gonna connect the dots. Okay, well,
yeah,
that guy told me that guy told me that, and none of those guys know what I know about that because I met that other guy 6 months ago. I'm connecting the dots here. There is an opportunity.
No, I love that.
That's right. And it's also about network. It's also about, etc. So you don't create opportunity by staying, in your cave or at your desk with a pen and paper. So the idea that you need to find an idea is completely rubbish when you think about it. It's not about that. It's about going to the world, meeting people, attending events, etc., etc. And maybe that's mean that instead of playing football with friends or going to the nightclub with friends, etc., that means maybe you are begging the guy which is organizing that big event, the technological summit, whatever, blah, to actually take you as an intern or as a whatever. Why? Because that's where you're going to meet people. That's where you're going to understand things. That's where you're going to connect dots.
No, it makes sense. Another question I want to ask, which is quite similar, but in all that you've learned from the inception of APO and where it is now, what are maybe one or two essential leadership skills or advice that you would give in order to develop, as you mentioned, developing those sorts of organizations?
And that's again a very complex question. I used to say at some point that entrepreneurship, so developing a company, so creating, anyone can do, as I said, but developing a company is one of the most difficult thing a human being can do. So you can think I'm exaggerating here, but the way the world is structured, the way our system, the world we are living in is structured, there is a reason why the Elon Musk and Bezos and Gates, etc., are so wealthy. It's because the world we are in is rewarding that and the entrepreneurship. And the reason why it's rewarding that is because it's very difficult. Not everyone can do it. If it was easy, it will have no value, right? It's a very it takes a lot of things to come together to make a successful business. And it's not even enough to do everything right. There is a part of luck. There is a part of meeting the right people at the right time, etc., etc. So it's a mix of making the right decision, so making more good decisions than bad decisions, and it's not about making decisions. It's the ability to prioritize is extremely important, but you also need to work very hard. I worked 12 hours a day for 10 years or so, including weekends. It takes a lot. It's a sacrifice, really. I mean, if you want it, really, that's what you want. Well, you want to be an entrepreneur. You want to build a company. You want to. Well, sure, but well, then if that's what you want, that's what you do. That's what you do, and then you're gonna have to sacrifice a few things for that.
Yeah.
So when you work 12 hours a day for 10 years, what I'm explaining to the students when I'm giving lectures is that I consider myself a survivor. And when I said that, I always pause for a few seconds because I know some of those students will laugh, with your survivor. I mean, what do you even mean, survivor? What is it? You went to war, you're a soldier now, or whatever, something like that. And then I pause for a few seconds and I say, yeah, because, I worked 12 hours a day for 10 years. I didn't have a cancer, I didn't have a stroke, I didn't have a heart attack, and I did not even divorce. So then they start saying, okay, yeah, well, indeed, maybe that's you know what? Try it for 1 month. Try for 1 month, 12 hours a day, including weekend, for 1 month. Just do it for 1 month. Just do it for 1 month. I did it for 10 years.
Yeah. Oh.
That you were mentioning that post, that LinkedIn post. I'm happy to see that so many people are considering inspirational, etc., etc. But I'm not sure. Generally, it's not only about that post. But generally, my gut feeling, my assessment is that most people do not actually realize what it takes.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to see comments that I feel very inspired by that LinkedIn, and now I'm because of that post I've decided I'm going to create my company, and I'm going to prove them wrong, etc. Sure,
yeah,
absolutely. But it's gonna cost you.
Yeah. Wow. No, those are the sort of insights that people need to hear. Rewarding, but it is extremely tough. So I guess as we wrap up, I guess just a few more questions that I want to ask in terms of, I guess for APO, what's next in like the next 5 to 10 years or so?
10 years. Well, we have so there are two things happening within the company as we speak. To let's say big development, I would say, like structural level.
Infrastructure, okay, yeah.
For the company. Unfortunately, I cannot disclose the detail of that.
No problem.
But let's just say that we will venture into an additional subcategory of public relation, let's say. Okay. A specific activity. It's still public relation, but it's very specific. And it's very exciting because those are very exciting projects, and the average amounts of those contracts is way higher than what we are used to company today. So all this is very exciting. But listen, what we want to do is to continue on that trajectory of success and making sure we are the uncontested, unrivaled public relation agency, African public relation agency on the African continent.
Yeah.
The only companies which could claim that they are comparing to APO Group are non-African companies. They are global companies. So personally, I would like the leading Pan-African Public Relation Agency, the company which owned the market of public relation on the Pan-African, to be an African company. So I want APO to be that company. I don't want a New York headquartered company to claim Africa.
Yeah.
I mean, let's not forget that APO stands for African Press Organization. APO is an African Press Organization is our name. So there is that, and I'm not worried about that. I think again we we have a very good, very well established model. Clients are happy. Retention rate is 100%.
That's great.
Staff is happy. We have very low turnover, if any. So the prospect, we are winning awards. The prospects are extremely good, extremely positive.
Yeah. No, good. And I guess also from a personal perspective, how do you see, similar 5-10 years? You still working as hard, or I guess more on a personal level?
Well,
I think you do individually as well in terms of boards and advisory and things like that.
So freedom is not doing nothing in my mind.
Yeah.
In my opinion, freedom is doing what you want.
Yes.
Not doing nothing, but doing what you want. I'm lucky enough that I'm doing more and more what I want.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not there yet. I'm not doing 100% of the time what I would like to do.
Yeah.
So that's my objective within the next 5 years. In fact, I'm 47. I'm gonna reach 50 in 3 years. So the idea is before I'm 52 or so, I want to reach a point where I'm actually free. And being free doesn't mean for me to do nothing, but to do only what I want. I was telling you about our ecosystem. There is plenty there. I can, as the chairman of APO Group, I'm entitled to invite people to Afro Nation, to invite people to the final of the Basketball Africa League, to the Africa Cup of Nations, to the Rugby Africa Gold Cup, to the Rugby World Cup, to the All Africa Games, all the Olympic competition on African soil, and so many other things. So many other things. So the idea is to be sure by the time I'm 52, I actually reach freedom stage, which is for me doing what I want to do.
Wonderful, Nicolas. Thank you so much for your time. It's always wonderful talking to you, but having these in-depth conversations is just wonderful to hear of your story and your journey and what you're doing in a personal capacity, and also, with APO. And so thankful that you are a survivor. So we thank your wife and all your support around you for being there and sticking by you. So thank you so much for your time. And to everyone, thank you. And to everyone listening, thank you. We hope that you have been able to gain some insights and knowledge on, just building a sustainable and effective and purpose-filled organization. So thank you so much, and we look forward to you joining us next time.